Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are standing at the edge of something massive. And when I say massive, I don't just mean the millions of tons of concrete and steel, though we are certainly talking about that.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, massive in terms of complexity, of ambition, and just the sheer weight of history colliding with the future.
Mm.
We're looking at the potential restart of a nuclear power program, specifically the Ninth Thuan nuclear plant project in Vietnam.
It's a fascinating case study, truly. Because when most people think about restarting a nuclear program, or, starting one from scratch, they think about the physics,
Right, the hardware.
the hardware,
Yeah.
exactly. Turbines, atoms, fission, fuel rods, maybe waste storage deep underground, all that stuff. But the material we have in front of us today suggests that the real engineering challenge here, it isn't the technology.
It's not the atom.
It's not the atom, it's the human element.
Yeah.
It's the collision of politics, money, culture, and, well, psychology.
Exactly. And the source material we have for this deep dive is, I have to say, incredibly unique. It's what's called a PEST analysis. Now, for those who haven't spent time in corporate boardrooms, that stands for political, economic, social, and technological.
It's usually a pretty dry format, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly dry. It's usually a crowdsourced list where experts identify specific risks, they code them, P001 or E005, and then they just move on. It's a spreadsheet, basically.
Usually, yes, it can be very dry. But there is a twist in this specific data set that I find absolutely gripping. It's not just a list of risks. The analysts have applied a lens to these risks called spiral dynamics.
Okay, I have to stop you right there
Yeah.
because I saw this in the notes and I honestly thought it was a typo. Spiral dynamics. I've heard the term floating around, in self-help circles or maybe organizational psychology, but isn't
Mhm.
that a bit woo?
A little bit, yeah.
You're telling me we are analyzing a multi-billion-dollar critical infrastructure nuclear project using a psychological color wheel? I mean, that sounds like bringing a horoscope to a board meeting. Convince me this isn't just pseudoscience.
I love the skepticism. And honestly,
Yeah.
you're right to be skeptical. It's a healthy reaction. If you just look at the surface, it sounds soft,
Yeah.
vague. But here is why it matters for a project like this. Spiral dynamics is a framework for understanding human development and value systems.
Okay.
It suggests that individuals and entire societies don't just think. They think through specific filters or stages of development, which are represented by colors.
So it's about how people value things, not just what they value.
Precisely. That's the key distinction.
Yeah.
And in a project this complex, you have different groups operating on completely different operating systems. You have villagers operating on, say, ancient traditional values. You have government officials operating on power and urgency.
And bankers operating on cold, hard logic.
Exactly. These aren't just disagreements. They are fundamentally different realities. So the mission of this deep dive isn't to say risk P001 is a bad law. It's to decode the color-coded clashes where these realities smash right into each other.
So we aren't just listing budget overruns or technical glitches. We are watching a cage match between different stages of human evolution.
That is a very dramatic way to put it, but
Yeah.
yes, that is exactly what we are doing. We have a spreadsheet full of these codes, P001, E005, S006, and each one represents a friction point between these worldviews.
All right, I'm listening. I'm intrigued. If we're going to build this beast, we have to start with the foundation. In the notes, this is referred to as the blue V meme.
Right, let's forget the rest of the rainbow for a second. Right now, we only care about blue. In spiral dynamics, blue is the color of absolute order. Think of it like the operating system of a strict computer or, a 1950s bureaucracy.
Very structured.
Very. It's about rules, hierarchy, the truth with a capital T, and doing things by the book.
So law and order, stability, the guardrails.
Exactly. And for nuclear power, blue is non-negotiable. You cannot run a nuclear plant on vibes or, impulse. You need rigid adherence to safety protocols, legal frameworks, regulatory bodies. It's the burden of structure.
So in this context, blue is the good guy. We want blue. We need more blue.
We need blue. It's the bedrock. But blue has a dark side. Rigidity and bureaucracy. It can become an end in itself. And our first data point, risk P001, highlights a massive crack in this very foundation.
I'm looking at P001 right here. It's titled The New Law. It describes a new legal framework for nuclear safety and development. I mean, that sounds responsible. That sounds very blue.
It is on paper.
Yeah.
A perfect example of blue thinking. We need a rule, so let's write one. But look at the risk analysis attached to it. Risk P001E001. It warns that while a framework is in place, that's the blue stability, the immense capital costs create a clash. This is a clash between blue, which is order, and orange, which is economics.
And we'll get to orange in a minute, but that's basically money, right? The drive for growth and profit.
Yes. The risk identified is that the immense capital costs and, crucially, the lack of local funding might stall the implementation of this beautiful, perfect law. Essentially, you have a blue law that is technically flawless, but it risks becoming a paper tiger.
A paper tiger! That's a vivid image. So the law has teeth drawn on it, but it can't actually bite because there's no money to feed it.
That's a great way to put it. Let's pause on paper tiger.
Yeah.
When we say the law becomes weak because of a lack of money, what does that look like on a Tuesday morning at the plant?
Okay, yeah, let's make it real.
It means the safety inspector, a good, diligent, blue-minded person, needs a specific Geiger countercalibration, or a structural stress test on a certain valve that costs $50,000. The law says he needs it, he must have it, but the procurement request sits in a pending folder for 6 months.
Why?
Because the budget is frozen, because the international financing that was supposed to cover operational safety readiness hasn't come through. So the inspector is standing there with a clipboard, looking at a regulation that says check X, but his wallet is empty.
And meanwhile, the reactor is running.
And meanwhile, the reactor is running. The law says safety first, but the bank account says, wait a minute. The analysis points out, and this is a direct quote, that the capital requirements exceed internal financial possibilities. If the international financing conditions aren't favorable, if the money doesn't show up, the blue law becomes a hallucination. The political will gets undermined because they simply cannot afford to be as safe as their own law requires.
That's a terrifying start. You have the perfect rule book, but you don't have the gas money to drive the car by the rules.
And it gets even more complicated with risk P002. This one is called the political mandate. The government has a strong political will to resume the project. That is a form of blue authority, a top-down mandate. We have decided, therefore it shall be.
Which sounds good, right? Strong leadership, decisive.
It sounds good, but the data identifies a clash here. Risk P0002 SAS001, a blue versus blue conflict, or maybe blue versus society. It's the danger of what I call bureaucratic blindness.
Bureaucratic blindness? What do you mean by that?
The risk is that a strong top-down mandate exists without transparent public engagement on safety. The assumption, the blind spot, is that because the authority, the blue system, has spoken, the public will just obey. The government knows best.
Wait, play devil's advocate here. In a place like Vietnam, with a strong central government, if the government says, we are building a plant, don't people generally just go along with it? Why is this a risk? Isn't that just how it works?
That's the classic assumption from a purely top-down blue perspective. But that assumption is eroding everywhere, including there. The analysis warns that relying solely on a mandate can erode public trust, leading to disruption. Just because you have the authority to sign the decree doesn't mean you have the permission of the people living next door to the plant.
So just because you passed a law or signed a decree, the social contract isn't signed. That's a separate negotiation.
A completely separate negotiation. And blue systems often struggle with this. They value the structure of authority so much they forget that trust is a currency you have to earn, not just legislate. And nowhere is this collision more dangerous than in data point T009.
Okay, T009. This is about proactive environmental and safety procedures. Specifically mentions flood control for coastal locations, which, I mean, given climate change and the number of typhoons in that region, that is pretty much non-negotiable.
It is the definition of a blue constraint. You must have flood control. The physics of water and the reality of the climate demand it. But look at the clash here. Risk T009 BP006.
It says here, safety procedures require rigid adherence, blue, but government timelines, pressure engineers to cut corners.
This is a classic blue versus blue civil war.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. You have the order of safety protocols fighting against the order of political timelines.
Two different kinds of order?
Two different, and in this case, competing forms of order. The government sets a deadline. Let's say we must break ground by 2026. That deadline becomes a rigid law in the minds of the bureaucrats. It's a key performance indicator. It's their job. But the geological survey, or the flood modeling study, takes 6 months longer than expected. Which law wins? The law of physics or the law of the politician's calendar?
I feel like I know the answer to this, and I don't like it. If the political timeline wins.
Then you get incomplete documentation. You get assumptions instead of verifications.
Right.
You get engineers saying, well, we're 95% sure it's fine. Let's sign off on it so we don't hold up the project.
Yeah.
You get the foundation of a disaster.
So the burden of the blue stage is that it can be rigid in the wrong places.
That's it. Rigid on deadlines, but flexible on safety, when it should be the absolute other way around. It's checking the box without reading the text next to it. It's the performance of safety, not the practice of it.
So we have a legal system that might be unfunded, a political mandate that might be ignoring the public, and a timeline that might be crushing safety protocols.
That's a foundation. It sounds shaky.
It is shaky, but a foundation doesn't do anything on its own. You need an engine to drive the project forward. And that brings us to the next color in the spiral, orange.
Okay, introduce us to orange. What's the vibe here?
Orange is the dominant color of the modern world. It evolved out of blue's rigidity. If blue is order and rules, orange is strategy, success, and science. Orange doesn't ask, is this the right way? It asks, how do I win?
So it's about achievement.
Achievement. It's materialistic, it's capitalist, it's about economic growth, innovation, efficiency, and beating the competition.
So blue is the church and the courthouse, and orange is Wall Street and Silicon Valley.
Perfect analogy. And make no mistake, orange is the primary driver for this nuclear plant. Why are they building it? Not because they have a deep philosophical love of atoms. They are building it for GDP. They want to be a developed nation. They want to win the economic game. This brings us right to the money. Data points E001 and E003, mobilizing capital and upgrading the stock market.
This is fascinating stuff. E003 specifically talks about the goal of upgrading the Vietnamese stock market from a frontier market to an emerging market.
Okay, hold on. We need to break this down. For the listeners who aren't day trading or working at Goldman Sachs, why does that distinction matter? Frontier versus emerging. It sounds like marketing speak.
It does, but it's incredibly important. Think of the stock market classifications like credit cards or credit scores. Right now, as a frontier market, Vietnam is like a college student with a starter credit card. The limit is low and the interest rate is high. You can buy lunch, but you can't buy a house.
Okay, that makes sense. It limits the scale of what you can do.
It severely limits it. They want to upgrade to emerging status. That's the platinum card. That's where the big institutional investors, we're talking pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, the guys with literally trillions of dollars, are legally allowed to play. Their own charters often prevent them from investing in frontier markets.
So until you get that upgrade, you're shopping in the discount aisle for funding.
You are. And you cannot build a $10 billion nuclear plant with a starter credit card. It's impossible.
So they need the upgrade to get the deep pockets, the serious money.
Precisely. But here's the clash. Risk E003-004. This is orange versus blue again. The ambition to upgrade the market, a pure orange goal, is being hammered by political delays in legal reforms. A blue problem.
Ah, it's the speed trap. The economy wants to race like a Ferrari. They want that emerging market status now, but the legal system, the bureaucracy, is driving a tractor in the left lane.
And that tractor is blocking the road completely. The analysis says, and I'll quote again, incomplete or slow legal reforms could hinder the upgrade. Things like changing ownership limits for foreign investors or improving transparency. These are blue structural changes. If you don't make them, you don't get the upgrade.
And if you don't get the upgrade,
You don't get the cheap capital. If you don't get the cheap capital, the nuclear plant becomes prohibitively expensive. The math just stops working. The orange dream dies on the side of the blue highway.
and it's not just the legal system blocking the road, it's other drivers too, other economic drivers. Let's talk about the competition. Data points E009 and E010.
This is where the orange drive for profit starts eating itself. This is orange versus orange, internal competition, a pure market battle.
The data mentions significant competition from large-scale LNG projects, specifically a $2 billion investment in central Vietnam. LNG is liquefied natural gas.
Right. So imagine you are a big international investor, the kind of person they need to attract. You have two folders on your desk. Folder A is nuclear. It takes 10, 15 years to build. It costs billions up front before you fill a single watt of power, and the public might protest it.
High risk, long-term reward.
Very. Now, folder B is LNG. You can build it in 3-4 years. It's cheaper to start. It uses technology that's well understood, and it burns gas that is readily available on the global market. In a pure orange market struggle, where winning now is the goal, LNG looks a lot more attractive, doesn't it?
It's the marshmallow test. Do you want one marshmallow now with LNG or 2 marshmallows in 15 years with nuclear? Orange tends to want the marshmallow now.
Especially when the government is sending mixed signals. And this is the killer part. Look at E010. tax exemptions favoring competing energy sources.
This is the policy inconsistency risk. You're trying to do two opposite things at once.
Exactly. The government says, we want nuclear. That's the blue mandate.
Okay.
But the tax code, the Ministry of Finance says, here's a tax break for coal and LNG.
Huh.
That's an orange incentive.
It's like a parent telling their kid, I really want you to eat healthy, while simultaneously stuffing the pantry with Oreos and handing them a coupon for McDonald's.
Perfect analogy.
You can't blame the kid for eating the burger. That's the policy inconsistency risk, E010.
A perfect analogy. And it highlights a lack of systemic thinking, which we'll get to later with the yellow V meme. They aren't looking at the whole energy ecosystem. They're looking at individual silos. The coal guys lobbied for a tax break and got it. The nuclear guys got a mandate. The LNG guys got a permit. But they're all fighting for the same grid capacity and the same funding pool. It's cannibalistic.
And it makes investors nervous.
Deeply nervous. They see a government that doesn't have a coherent strategy.
Speaking of systems and funding, there's one more orange point that seemed really granular, really in the weeds, but is apparently huge. T003, the KRX trading system.
Yes. The new IT system for the stock exchange.
Why is a software update for the stock market on a risk list for a nuclear plant? That feels like a stretch. Is the reactor going to be run by day traders?
No, thankfully not. But it all comes back to trust. The risk here is T003E003. The launch of this new trading system is supposed to enhance market efficiency and attract foreign investors. That's its orange purpose. But the project has been plagued by technical delays and glitches.
Okay, so the website is slow. Why does that matter to a nuclear engineer?
Because it's a proxy for competence. It's a signal. If you're a major fund in London or New York and you're considering putting $1 billion into Vietnam, you look at things like this. If you see that they can't even run a trading platform without it crashing a system that just moves numbers around, why on earth should I trust you to run a nuclear reactor, which involves splitting atoms and managing radioactive material for 60 years?
Wow, that's a brutal assessment.
It is, but it's how foreign capital thinks. It's all about risk assessment. Technical delays here aren't just IT problems, they are reputational bombs. If the orange system, the very mechanism of commerce glitches, the foreign capital flees, they think this place isn't ready for the big leagues. And without that capital, the nuclear plant is just a drawing on a napkin.
So the orange engine is sputtering, it's being starved of fuel by legal delays, it's facing competition, and its own machinery is glitching. But now we have to talk about the accelerant, the fuel that gets thrown on the fire when things move too slow. The red V.
Red. Now, we can be careful here. People hear red and they think communist because of the flag, or they think anger. In spiral dynamics, red is more primal than that. It's the stage of power, urgency, and impulsiveness. It's the warrior stage, the conquering hero.
The do it now stage, get it done.
It's more like the might makes right stage. It's decisive, it's egocentric, and it breaks rules to get things done. In a project like this, red usually manifests when the blue bureaucracy is moving too slowly for the politician's liking.
So red is the boss slamming his fist on the table and saying, I don't care what the regulations say, make it happen.
That is the perfect embodiment of red energy. We see this with crystal clarity in data points P009 and P012, the acceleration mandate.
High-level government pressure to accelerate the rollout of PDP-8. That's the Power Development Plan. And P012, interagency mandate to accelerate land clearance.
Accelerate land clearance. That phrase in this context sends a shiver down my spine.
Why? Isn't speed good? If we need power and we know where the plant is going, shouldn't we clear the land quickly and get started?
Speed is good. Haste is fatal. This is a classic red versus blue-orange clash. The risk is P012-008. The red mandate from on high demands the land be cleared now. But the orange need for a viable long-term project requires proper, well-executed resettlement, and the blue legal process requires fair compensation hearings and due process.
But red doesn't care about hearings or due process. Red cares about seeing bulldozers on the ground tomorrow.
Precisely. The analysis calls this the bulldozer approach. The high-pressure mandate leads to rushed social handling. You skip the town halls, you pressure the locals to sign the papers, maybe you cut corners on the compensation checks because the boss wants a ribbon-cutting ceremony next month for the cameras.
And what happens when you bulldoze people, literally or figuratively?
You get blowback. And this is the paradox. The red urgency to go faster actually slows the project down in the long run. Because when you bulldoze people without listening to them, you create resistance, you create protests, you create lawsuits. The analysis explicitly warns of corruption or social unrest.
It's the classic hurry up and wait phenomenon. You hurry to clear the land in 3 months, and then you wait 5 years because the locals are blockading the construction site with burning tires.
Exactly. Red energy is powerful, gets things started, but it is terrible at finishing things that require nuance and cooperation. And there is another red variable here that is fascinating. E01 pricing reform.
This is about raising electricity prices to cover the losses of EVN, the state utility.
Right. EVN, the state utility, is bleeding money. To fix it, from a purely rational standpoint, you need to raise prices. That is the blue-orange structural need. Solvency. Simple math. But look at the clash. Blue versus red.
The red political fear of public backlash.
Raising electricity prices is deeply unpopular. It makes people angry.
Yeah.
And a red political instinct is primarily about self-preservation and maintaining power. The core thought is, do not anger the mob, because the mob can unseat me.
So the government might back down on the necessary price hikes just to keep the peace.
Exactly. And if they back down, EVN stays broke. And if EVN is broke, they can't be a credible buyer for the power from the multi-billion-dollar nuclear plant they're trying to build.
So the entire project's financial model collapses.
It could. The government faces a choice. Make the hard, unpopular, but structurally necessary choice. That's blue-orange discipline. Or succumb to the fear of unpopularity. That's a red impulse. The risk analysis suggests they might choose the latter, leading to more debt rather than solvency.
We've touched on the locals a bit with the land clearance, but let's go deeper into the social spectrum. This is where we see the clash between the ancient and the modern. The data introduces two more colors here, purple and green.
This is where the analysis gets really up, I think. Let's start with purple. Purple is the oldest V-meme in the model. It represents the tribal stage. It is magical, animistic, and deeply connected to the land, the spirits of the ancestors, and the rhythms of nature.
Okay, skeptical me is back again. Are we actually talking about ghosts and magic spells here?
We are talking about connection, a deep, sacred connection. To a Western-trained, orange-minded engineer, land is a grid coordinate on a map. It's a commodity. To a purple community, like the fishing villages in Ninh, Thuan, the land is the blood of the ancestors. It is alive. It has a spirit.
And that brings us to data point S006, which mentions local livelihoods.
The concern here is the disruption of fisheries and seafood industries. But you have to look at this through the purple lens. This isn't just about jobs or income, which would be an orange way of seeing it. This is about a way of life that has existed for centuries.
The clash identified is S006T007, purple versus orange.
Think about this collision. It's profound. You have this strategic, high-tech international partnership, very orange-blue coming in. They talk about megawatts, thermal efficiency, and grid stability. They bring charts and spreadsheets. The locals, meanwhile, are talking about environmental contamination, but not necessarily in a scientific parts per million sense.
They view it as a violation, a desecration.
Exactly. Through the purple lens, a nuclear plant is an invisible, silent threat. It's a kind of modern curse. You can't see the radiation, but you are told it's dangerous. It disrupts the harmony of the land. It might anger the sea spirits that provide the
And you cannot solve a purple fear with an orange spreadsheet.
You absolutely cannot. You can't just walk into a tribal village and say, don't worry, the probability of a core meltdown is 0.00001%. That number is meaningless to them. You can't just say, here is a check for your lost fish. You have to address the spiritual and communal dislocation. If you don't, that fear hardens into immovable resistance. You aren't fighting an argument anymore. You are fighting a belief system.
That is a massive, massive blind spot for technocrats. Now, on the other side of the social spectrum, we have green. This is a newer color in the model. What is green?
Green is the reaction to the excesses of orange. Orange was all about me, success, growth. Green is about us, community, environment. It values egalitarianism, consensus, sensitivity, and sharing.
And the data points S007 and S011 discuss the green future narrative for the plant.
This is the modern political framing. You see it everywhere. Nuclear is essential for a green future. They are trying to sell the project not just as an economic engine, which is the orange argument, but as an environmental savior, which is a green argument. We are saving the planet from carbon.
It's a powerful narrative. But there is a trap here, isn't there? Risk, S011P009, green versus red.
A critical insight. The Green V meme values genuine consensus. It wants everyone to be heard. It wants buy-in. It wants a community meeting where everyone holds hands and agrees. But red government urgency demands speed. We don't have time for another meeting.
You cannot rush consensus. That's an oxymoron.
It is. If you try to force consensus, if you hold a town hall but you don't actually listen, or if you say, we are green, but you're bulldozing protected forests to build the transmission lines, you break the social contract. The analysis calls this the risk of greenwashing.
Greenwashing. That's when you paint the smokestack green and call it eco-friendly.
Precisely. And if the public perceives the project as greenwashing, the green support evaporates instantly. The environmentalists who might have tentatively supported nuclear as a low-carbon option turn against you. They become your fiercest critics.
And then you're left with no allies. The purple locals hate you because you disturbed the ancestors, and the green cosmopolitans hate you because you lied about the process.
It's a pincer movement of public opinion. You've alienated both the traditional and the progressive ends of the social spectrum.
So we've covered the foundation, the engine, the accelerant, and the people. Now let's talk about the trap, the technological trap. This is where I get into the final color for today, yellow.
Yellow. This is the highest level we are looking at in this data. Yellow is the systemic thinker. It's integrative. While blue follows rules and orange seeks profit, yellow looks at the whole interconnected web. It values functional competence, flexibility, and the very long term. We're talking 20, 30, 50 years out.
And data point T011 reveals a massive ambition that feels very yellow. The goal to master small modular reactor or SMR technology by the year 2040.
Okay, let's geek out for a second on SMRs because it's important. Why is this a yellow goal? Because SMRs are integrative. They're smaller, inherently safer in many designs, and factory-built. They can be scaled up or down. They can fit into smaller grids. They are, in a way, the iPhone of nuclear power compared to the mainframe computer of the past. Mastering this suggests you want to be at the bleeding edge of the future, not just a consumer of old tech.
It sounds incredibly smart, very forward-thinking, so what's the problem?
The problem is the bridge to get there. Look at the clash. Risk T011 day 006. This is yellow versus orange.
The detail here says, the country is currently committing to traditional partners Rosatom of Russia for standard reactors.
And there's the trap. To solve the energy crisis today, that's the orange need for power and the blue need for stability, they're likely signing contracts for massive traditional gigawatt-scale reactors. These are 20th century designs. They require huge, bespoke infrastructure, specific supply chains, and rigid, decades-old training protocols.
So by signing the contract for the old tech now, to solve today's problem,
they might be structurally preventing themselves from ever achieving the yellow goal of 2040 mastery. This is the lock-in risk.
Yeah.
Think about it like computer operating systems. If you build your entire company's infrastructure in the 90s running on Windows, all your servers, all your custom software, all your training manuals, and then 10 years later you say, you know what, we want to be a cool, innovative company that runs on Mac. You can't. You are locked in.
Because your people, your infrastructure, your whole culture only knows how to use Windows.
Exactly. It's not just about the hardware. Once you build a massive Russian PWR, a pressurized water reactor, your entire national nuclear sector, from your top engineers to your regulators to your safety inspectors, gets trained on that system. They learn Russian acronyms. They learn Russian safety logic. They become a satellite of that technological ecosystem.
We see this reflected in data point S009 and T0112 regarding human resources. The risk is importing knowledge versus localizing it.
This is the core of the lock-in problem. If the training provided by Rosatom, which is an orange commercial transaction for them, focuses solely on operating their specific reactor, you aren't building a national nuclear capability, which is a yellow goal. You are just training operators for a foreign vendor's machine.
You're training drivers, not mechanics or car designers.
A perfect distinction. If you only have drivers, you remain dependent on the car dealership forever. If the car breaks down, you have to call Moscow. That is the absolute antithesis of the yellow goal of mastery and independence. You are selling your future flexibility to solve a present-day problem.
This leads us perfectly into the final section, international entanglements, geopolitics seen through the spiral. We've mentioned Russia, and the data also mentions South Korea, KP Potepo, as a potential partner.
The relationship with Russia is particularly interesting through this spiral lens. Look at data point P013.
Bilateral framing of the Russia-Vietnam partnership as one of deep trust and long-term commitment.
Deep trust. That is a classic blue value. It's about loyalty, history. We've been friends since the Soviet times. We were comrades. It's an appeal to a shared past and a sense of obligation.
But the risk identified is P013, E013. Blue loyalty versus orange viability.
This is the danger of mixing friendship with finance on a multi-billion-dollar scale. The analysis is implicitly asking, is this project being pursued because it is financially sound, which is an orange concern, or because it is geopolitically comfortable, a blue concern.
Are we buying this reactor because it's the best deal and the best technology for our future, or are we buying it because we trust the guy selling it and we have a long history together?
And in a project that costs billions of dollars and will run for 60 years, relying on blue loyalty can be a fatal financial error. If the orange numbers don't add up, if the financing is too expensive or the technology is inefficient, the blue trust won't save you from bankruptcy. You can love your brother, but you shouldn't necessarily let him build your house if he's not a licensed contractor.
And then there is the other side of that coin, the risk of dependence. Daypoint P003, single partner dependence.
This is the tension between the ease of a turnkey solution from a trusted ally like Russia versus the strategic need for diversification. If you put all your nuclear eggs in the Rosatom basket, you lose political flexibility.
If geopolitics shifts, say international sanctions are imposed on your partner or there's a major change in foreign policy, you are stuck. You are locked in.
Exactly. Your critical national energy infrastructure becomes a hostage to another country's foreign policy. And that is the ultimate clash of the spiral we see here. The blue desire for safety and familiarity is in direct conflict with the yellow need for systemic flexibility and long-term independence.
Wow. Okay. We have really unpacked the whole stack here. We've gone from the blue laws to the orange money, the red urgency, the purple roots, the green aspirations, and the yellow dreams. It's a lot.
It is a kaleidoscope of conflict. It's a traffic jam of value systems, all trying to merge onto the same highway at the same time.
Let's try to synthesize this. If we had to profile this project, if we had to give it a personality test, based on this data, what is it?
Based on this data, I would say, this is fundamentally an orange project. It's primarily about economic growth and national prestige.
Right.
And it's trying to operate within a rigid blue structure of legal frameworks and top-down government bureaucracy.
But that whole system is being driven by...
It's being driven by red urgency.
Okay.
The power shortages are real. The government needs power now, so they are pushing the accelerator to the floor.
And that red acceleration is, what is it doing?
It is threatening the purple traditions and sacred connections of the local people, and it's ignoring the need for the genuine green consensus that builds long-term public trust.
All while these aspirational yellow goals of future technological mastery and independence are struggling to find any space to breathe, they're getting choked out.
Exactly. And the central danger, when you look at all these clashes, is that the red impulse to just build the thing will crush the blue safety checks and the purple social harmony in the process.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Why should you care about spiral dynamics in a Vietnamese nuclear plant? It feels very abstract.
Because it illustrates that risk is rarely just about money or a technology failure. When we see a project go over budget by $5 billion or get delayed by 10 years or, God forbid, have an accident, we usually blame incompetence or bad math.
But you're saying it's deeper than that. It's not just that someone messed up a spreadsheet.
I'm saying it's usually about the friction between these different human value systems. It's not that the engineers don't know the math. It's that the red political timeline forced the blue safety officer to skip a step because the orange budget for the proper equipment wasn't approved.
It makes the invisible forces visible.
Correct. Acknowledging these colors allows for better prediction. If you see red urgency spiking in the official statements, you know purple blowback from local communities is probably coming. If you see orange ambition wildly outpacing the reform of blue laws, you know a financial stall is on the horizon. It gives you a map of the human terrain.
That is a powerful way to look at the world, not just this project. Before we go, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on, a provocation.
Go for it.
We talked about that yellow goal mastery, independence, future-proofing the nation's technology. My question is this. If a developing nation bypasses its own blue legal safeguards to satisfy red urgency in the pursuit of orange growth, can it ever truly reach that yellow stage of mastery? Or is it destined to build a future on a shaky foundation that will eventually collapse under its own weight? Can you actually skip the levels?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? And I suspect the answer, whatever it is going to be built or not built in Ninh Thuan.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.